So myself, Sonu Sathyadas, and I'm from Synergetics, working as Assistant Manager Technology. And today's session is on accelerating the app development using the GitHub Copilot. Since all of you know that GitHub Copilot is one of the hot topic today, because most of the organizations is now uh, building the applications using this AI-enabled tools. So yes, GitHub Copilot is one of the widely used AI development productivity tool from Microsoft. And I'll be demonstrating a couple of features of GitHub Copilot, and we'll talk about some of the, and I'll be showing some of the demos of GitHub Copilot. So maybe some of you will be already familiar with the GitHub Copilot. And yes, every day they are going to update the features and functionalities of the technology. Yes, since the technologies keep changing every day, uh, we need to keep updated with the technologies. As part of this, so first, I just need to give a brief about the GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot, as I mentioned, the developer productivity tool, which you can use to build all kinds of applications. It may be uh, a web-based application or mobile-based application or a console-based application. And it can be used in any IDE which you love to use. It may be the Visual Studio Code, one of the most commonly used IDE from the developers. But yes, we know that developers will be using their own language-specific IDs also, like maybe .NET people will be familiar with the Visual Studio, and Java people will be using the JetBrains or Eclipse, or the Python developers may be using the PyCharm or some other IDs. Yes, you can use the GitHub Copilot in all these IDEs. You can install the extension and configure this uh, within your IDE. Yes, and now you even enable the free option for this GitHub Copilot. Yes, but yes, to use the complete features of GitHub Copilot, you have to go and buy the purchase plan, or you have to look into the purchase plan and choose a purchase plan for that. But yes, the common features or commonly used features are now available in the free version of GitHub Copilot. Here I'm going to demonstrate some of the features of GitHub Copilot using the Visual Studio Code, because that's one of the IDE that is commonly used by the developers. In Visual Studio Code or any other IDE, if you have to configure your GitHub Copilot, first of all, you need to have the extension, which you can download from the marketplace or the extensions uh, page of that particular IDE. Some of the features of GitHub Copilot in VS Code, if you see, it is now uh, coming with not only the chat option, but also, yes, it is providing some agent-based operations in GitHub Copilot, because the agentic frameworks are now becoming very popular, and most of the uh, operations are automated with the agents, because frameworks like AutoGen, semantic kernels, LangChains, all are now helping us to build the agents. When Copilot is itself is an agent. So instead of just providing you a chat-based assistant, the Copilot can give you now uh, agent-based operation, which can automate the workflows, automate the operations on its own. But yes, now starting with the GitHub Copilot features, you have the GitHub Copilot individual plan, which is going to give you the basic features, which is now available as free also. So you can use the GitHub Copilot code completions. You can use the GitHub Copilot chat options or agents, and also the GitHub Copilot CLI, which can be used in your command line interface to get help on using the commands. Because if you are a system administrator and you want to know what are the different commands used inside your system, or you don't remember what kind of syntax used in your uh, uh, operations, yes, you can make use of the GitHub Copilot to get help on these commands. And if you want to try the GitHub Copilot on mobile, that also you can use. Uh, when using this GitHub Copilot, yes, I have delivered lots of Microsoft sessions on GitHub Copilot. Everywhere I get a question related to the code privacy as well as the copyright issues. Yes, if you look into the architecture of GitHub Copilot, it's going to make the request to the Copilot server or Copilot service, which is running on the cloud, after a content moderation. Means whenever you make a prompt for GitHub Copilot, it's going to first evaluate your prompt, and if it is not having any kind of uh, vulnerabilities or uh, uh, threats or any injections inside that, then it is allowing this prompt to go into the server. At the same time, when the response comes back from the GitHub Copilot server or the service which is running in the cloud, it is again go through the moderation service, because it's going to check whether the code or the generated code contains any copyrighted content. If it is containing some copyrighted content, it immediately blocks that code. But yes, you will be able to configure that settings in your GitHub Copilot account. Suppose if you are the administrator of the organization and you have the access to the GitHub organization account settings, you will be able to go and update the settings, whether you have to allow the public matching code or just block that code. And also, uh, when you use the GitHub Copilot business, you can also specify the uh, files to exclude from this GitHub Copilot. Typically, when you work with specific type of files, like maybe JavaScript files or C# files, or maybe some configuration files. So everywhere the GitHub Copilot is typically going to provide the suggestions or auto completions and all. But yes, it is possible that you can configure it in your settings that it has to exclude some of the file types in while using this Copilot. And also you can set up the policy at the organization level, like who will be using what features and functionalities, how many licenses or seats are allocated, so that you can configure at the organization, means at the Copilot settings in the business plan. And obviously, when using this business Copilot business, you will also get access to the audit logs and also the GitHub Copilot models. When you use typically the free plans will be always providing you rate limiting or throttling is applied. But when you go for this business plan, you will get higher rate limits. So you will be able to send more number of requests, and each request can have a large context size data. And when it comes to GitHub Copilot Enterprise, it is providing all the features of GitHub Copilot Business, as well as it is giving you the options in GitHub Copilot Chat. Now, yes, These features are now commonly available in all the plans. But yes, some highlighted features, what I have to say is it allow you to use the private repositories as a knowledge bases, which means suppose if you have to go and generate the code based on your existing private repositories, that you can do with the GitHub Copilot uh, enterprise plan. So when you use the GitHub Copilot, it, as I mentioned, you can easily integrate with all the IDs that you have, and it supports almost every programming language that we currently use. Not only the programming languages, but also the data format files like the YAML files or maybe JSON, XML, other configuration file types, okay, README files. So there are lots of uh, uh, programming languages and non-programming files is now supported in the GitHub Copilot. So when you see typically the developers, if they are taking time to build a full stack application, starting building the backend and then front end, the unit test codes and the deployment configurations, maybe the infrastructure configuration like Terraforms and all, you can easily now build all these in very less time by using this GitHub Copilot, because it helps you to create the a project from the instead of creating from the very scratch, you can create a boilerplate code using this GitHub Copilot. It can be your .NET or Java or uh, JavaScript based application, whatever, whether it is a front end or back end, you can create a working code, at least 80% or 90% working code you can create as a boilerplate code. So you need to build on top of that generated code. But yes, the technology has limitations also. First of all, the accuracy of this GitHub Copilot is always depends on the model that you use, because now GitHub Copilot is supporting multiple models, including the GPT, Cloud A, and many other. So which model you are choosing, the response accuracy is always depends on that. So you cannot expect the same response from GPT and Cloud A or some other models. And also, it may generate some biased code, and also you need to ensure that the policies are properly configured to avoid generating the public matching code or incorrect code. And one main problem which I have seen or I have experienced in my sessions is always the code which is generated by the Copilot. Even if you are using the same prompt multiple times, it's going to generate different responses or different results. Yes, it may be the problem with the model or it may be problem with the prompt, but yes, it is able to generate the project or it is able to generate the code, but we cannot expect the same code every time uh, from this GitHub Copilot. Because today, if I'm asking you to create a .NET Web API project, you will be writing a prompt, executing it, and you will get the project created. But tomorrow, if you try the same prompt, you may get a different response. But yes, with the help of prompt engineering, you will be able to rectify these problems to a certain point. But yes, since it is a generative AI product, I can say that you cannot guarantee the same response every time. But yes, if you are the administrator of your GitHub account, you can go to your GitHub settings, and you will be able to see the GitHub Copilot configurations. As you can see, if you look into this in my account, this is my personal account. I have the GitHub Copilot business is active in my account. And I can see what are the different features enabled or disabled in my account. You can see the preview features is enabled. Means if any new feature is released as public preview, I'll be able to use that features. And Copilot in github.com is enabled, means I'll be able to go and use this Copilot inside my github.com. And Copilot in the CLI, Copilot extensions, GitHub Copilot desktop, Copilot in the IDE, GitHub Copilot for mobile. Copilot can search the web is also enabled. And also you can see what are the different models currently supported. So you can see the Anthropic models and the Google Gemini models, the OpenAI models, all these models are currently enabled. So I have even disabled a couple of models. But yes, if you want to modify these settings, you need to go to the organization settings. Suppose in my case, this is the organization name, which is managing the GitHub Copilot's license. So if you go to the settings, you will be able to see this Copilot configurations. Suppose if you want to change the policies, you can go to the GitHub Copilot policy section, and you can always update this features here. So in you can see in my case suggestions, which is public matching code that is allowed in my case. So in case if I'm generating some code which is containing some public matching code, is still allowed to suggest that code in my chat window. And also you can see some of the features are enabled, and also you can choose which of the models to be enabled. As you can see, I have configured these number of models in my GitHub Copilot. So if you're using the GitHub Copilot in VS Code, you will be able to choose the model that you want to use while making a request. And also you can specify the content exclusions. So you can, as I mentioned, you can also specify the path to exclude, the type of files to exclude in this section. But yes, I have not configured any specific type of files or path. So you can specify the types of files and patterns here. So it will be ignored those type of files from the uh, GitHub Copilot usage. Suppose if you have configured the GitHub Copilot, okay, one more thing which I have to show. Yes, if you go to the access, you will be able to manage the number of seats of your GitHub Copilot. It means inside your organization, for which of the users you want to enable GitHub Copilot. In my personal account, I am the only user, so I have enabled the GitHub Copilot on my own usage. So here you will be able to control whether you have to enable the GitHub Copilot for selected users or for all the members of your organization, or you want to disable the GitHub Copilot features for your employees in the organization. Now coming back to this, once you start using this GitHub Copilot, you will experience the uh, uh, GitHub Copilot functionalities. Like specifically, we will be interacting with the Copilot in different ways. Maybe directly inside the editor, or you will be using a chat window, or you can use the inline chat or smart actions or quick chat. So chat view is one of the common interface that we use, because in chat view, you will be able to converse with the GitHub Copilot. Suppose if you have any questions regarding your code, maybe you have to improve the code, or you have to generate some code, or you have to translate some code. Whatever questions you have, you can ask to Copilot using the chat view. Yes, now it is providing some more options, but I'll discuss about that in the next slide. The inline chat is another option that we will be using. Maybe if I have to go and modify a function within the current file, I'll be able to quickly do that using the inline chat. So you can just use the Control and I to open the inline chat and write your prompt that can make the changes within the current file. So it cannot go and do a lot of operations in different files, but inline chat is typically used to edit the currently opened file. Smart action is another way, because suppose if you want to perform some operations, you can just simply right click on the file or file content, and you can see the menu option. For that, you will be able to go and do that operations using the menu. So when you right click, you will get a GitHub Copilot menu, and you will be able to uh, generate the document, or maybe you will be able to fix the code, or you have to um, explain the code. All these functionalities without writing a prompt. You don't need to go and write a prompt for doing that action. Simply quickly right click and execute that operation. So that's the smart actions menu. And the quick chat is something similar to the inline chat, but inline chat is not going to maintain the conversation history like the chat window. But in the quick chat, you will be able to simply do the conversation or interaction with the AI model just like the chat window, but it's a combination of inline chat and the chat view, because it's going to maintain the chat history. And if you look, this is one of the most commonly used feature, like autocomplete, which is a feature of the GitHub Copilot extension. When you start typing inside your file, it will automatically suggest the code based on what you have typed in the file. Maybe suppose if you simply create a class, you just need to type just class employee, and it will start suggesting the members of that particular class. So if you're creating the APIs in .NET or Java classes, you just need to write the first line of your function. From the function name, return type, and arguments, it is able to identify what you are going to do, and it will automatically suggest those code for you. So that is one of the most commonly used feature in GitHub Copilot. That's a autocomplete. But yes, if you are using this Copilot, some of the key points which we have to keep in mind is how to interact with the Copilot. First of all, we will be using the prompt, because it's obviously a generative AI solution. So inside your prompt, you can include the things like what you are supposed to do. That's the intent. So in the natural language, you will be describing what you are going to do with that operation. And also you have to include some of the files or a piece of code for more clarity. Maybe you have to send a request for correcting a code, or means doing a bug fixing, or maybe translating this code. So along with this request, along with the prompt, you will be also attaching the file, or you may be sending a piece of code in the prompt. So intent and the context is very important, because when you give the intent properly, you will get the accurate result. When you attach the context, you will be getting more accurate and relevant responses from this Copilot. And inside this Copilot chat, you will also be able to use the chat participants, slash commands, and chat variables. So inside the chat window, you can use the @ symbol to use the chat participants and chat variables. And you will be also able to use the slash commands, means you can just put a slash, which will suggest some of the commands like a new or a test or fix kind of uh, slash commands will be provided. That's you can use as a shortcut method for performing some of the operation. Instead of writing a lengthier prompt, you can do some of this operation by just using the slash commands. And also it helps the model or the copilot to understand what the user is trying to convey. So yes, obviously, when you write the prompt, uh, uh, when you write the intent portion of the prompt, be more specific and keep it simple. So instead of writing a very lengthy paragraph, which is very confusing, make it very simple. If it is a very lengthy task, break it into simple tasks and create smaller operations. So when you're defining the context, you can use the chat participant slash commands and variables. So I'll show you the example of that, how to use that. But yes, as I mentioned, when your first and primary interaction point is the chat window. So when you use the chat window, obviously we have three options getting. One is the ask, second is the edit, and the third one is the agent. So ask is the traditional way of using the chat because it helps you to converse with the GitHub Copilot, and you can simply ask any questions related to your code. But yes, if you want to make the interactive code changes, maybe you have to modify the existing file or you have to create some of the new files, then you can use the GitHub Copilot edit because it can proactively do something. Maybe if you're asking the Copilot to do a particular task, what are the different files required to complete that task? It will be able to go and create that file. So it can suggest that changes and you will be able to do that. But in the agent mode, as there's one of the new feature which is added, that is the agent mode is used to automate some complex operations. For example, if I have to connect with the database and seed the database with a dummy data set, you don't need to go and do this step by step. So in the prompt, you can just tell, okay, I want to connect with the SQL database with the entity framework and seed the data, provide some sample data with that. So it will automatically create the appropriate files and also execute the commands. So maybe some of the libraries need to be installed, some of the commands need to be executed. All can be executed automatically by using this agent mode. So that three options you have inside your uh, Copilot chat. So let me show you an example of that. If you go to VS Code, yes, I have installed the GitHub Copilot and signed into my account. So a couple of months back when I was doing back-to-back sessions on Copilot, they were providing the chat and edit option separately, but now they have moved that options into this three, that is ask, edit, and agent. Suppose if you want to converse with the model, yes, you will be using this ask, or you can switch to the edit mode, or you can switch to the agent mode. Yes, obviously you will be able to start using this conversational mode. And also, as I mentioned, you will be able to select the appropriate model. So by default, GPT 4.1 is selected. But yes, obviously, you will be able to go and select the other models as well. So if you want to use the 3.7 Cloud A model, I can select that and ask the model to do some operations. For example, I can use this slash commands. So here you can see a lot of slash commands available, and you can use this new to create some project. For example, if I have to create a .NET application, so I can simply write the query. I'm not going to do very complicated code. I'm just writing a very simple one. Create a REST API using .NET Core that performs the CRUD operations on book data or book object using entity framework and SQLite. So I'm just writing a very simple prompt. You can see I want to create a project. So for that, that's a reason I have used a chat participant as workspace, because it's going to use this workspace and use the new command to generate this project. So if you look into this, it's simply creating a project template, a boilerplate code. We cannot expect that this will be 100% working code, but yes, it's going to be a code that is maybe 80% or 90% completed code. So this is the application. So since okay, this is created an Android. Okay, I think it's created a different. It's not a REST API code. So if this is not the expected result, you can always go and modify this prompt. Okay, suppose if I have to reuse or rewrite this prompt, I can explicitly specify what kind of project to create. So maybe I can explicitly, instead of simply saying REST API, create a .NET Core Web API project. So in this case, I'm giving more clear intent because I want to create a .NET Core Web API. And you can see I have used this model, but in case if this model is not able to generate this response, yes, you can see it is again generating the XAML code, which means it's not the REST API. But I can go and use the same prompt with another model. Maybe I can use the GPT 4.1, and I am trying the same prompt with this. Yeah, this is the prompt. Let me try it with this. So I'm just trying with this. This time I have selected the GPT 4.1, and you will see the difference of whether it will create the same output or a different output, because different models will be understanding this prompt in a different way. You can see this time it has created the REST API project. So if you are okay, or if you feel that okay, this is the expected response, then you can create this project. So inside your folder, you can save this project, and this is the project that is created. You can say it's creating all the required files. So 80% or 70% of our development is now simplified. We have just created a project without writing a single line of code. But yes, obviously you will be able to go and modify this code if there is, because you cannot expect the model to go and generate 100% accurate code. As you can see, it is creating the controller, the .NET controller class, which is performing all the CRUD operations for that. And it is creating the model classes for us, and it is writing the DB context classes. So in this case, I have just used a / command to generate this project. But obviously, yes, you will be able to go and use the uh, quick actions or smart actions. Maybe if you right click, you will be able to see this Copilot, where you will get the options like to explain this code, fix the code, review and comment, or generate the codes and generate test. Means suppose if you feel that, okay, I have almost done with the project and I want to check whether this code is following all the best practices or not. So you can simply ask the Copilot. So I can use this ask, and you can simply include maybe the complete code base I have attached, and I can ask the question, is this project is following the best practices for security, or maybe naming conventions and exception handling. So I'm just asking whether the naming conventions and exception handling is properly followed in this code or not. You can see I have selected the entire code base. So it can just go and check the entire code and suggest what can be done. But obviously, so it's not possible to go and execute each and every feature of the Copilot. But yes, it is possible to scaffold the application. Means, as I have showed you, you will be able to go and create the project. You can document this code. Maybe you can create the complete documentation of this project, okay, using a README file, or you can create the individual class or function level documentation you can do. You can also explain the code. Suppose if as a developer, we typically copy paste the code from internet, but it will be difficult for us to I understand what that code is doing. So we will search for, okay, how to go and create a base64 code in .NET or Java. So in Google, it will give you the code, or you will get the code from some older repositories. You will copy paste as it is. But if you are not able to understand what this code is doing, you can simply select the code and ask the Copilot to explain that code. So that you can either do with the help of the Copilot chat, or you can do that with the help of the Smart Actions menu. Inline code completions simply helps you to uh, complete the code as you type. So when you start typing your code, it will start giving you the suggestions, and you will be able to go and iterate through the suggestions what is available. So you can use the mouse or the key shortcuts to navigate between the suggestions, and you will be also able to translate the code. Maybe I'm writing a .NET code, but uh, I have to implement some functionality. When you search that functionality, you will be always getting the code in a different language. Maybe the functionality is implemented in Python or maybe some other language. So if you want to convert that code into C sharp, or maybe the C sharp code you want to convert into Java, you can use the translate code feature. You just need to go and paste the code in the Copilot chat and ask the Copilot to translate this code into a target language. So it will simply go and convert that code into the appropriate language that you have specified. But yes, obviously it's not going to be a 100% accurate code, but yes, at least you will get an idea about what needs to be written in the code. But yes, most of the scenarios depends on the accuracy of the model. It depends on the training data set used in the models. The accuracy will be different for different models. So obviously, you have to select the best model that is available. Also, you can fix the bugs in the code. Suppose inside my application, if you when you run the application, you will see some syntactical errors or some logical errors. So you can ask the Copilot to fix this error, because it is very difficult for a developer to go and identify what is the reason for this error. Maybe when you run this code, you will get some error status code instead of the error messages. Maybe a developer is not able to understand what is the error, but you can just copy paste that code into the Copilot chat, and you can ask what is the reason for this error, or when I execute this code, it's giving this error. So how I can rectify this? So it can give all the possible options in the Copilot chat, but depends if you are using the agent mode or edit mode, it can also modify the code according to the suggestions given. Okay, so if you want to manually modify, you can use the Copilot chat ask option, which will show all the possible options in the chat window, and you can manually execute this. But if you go to the agent or edit mode, then it is going to directly make the changes in your code. As uh, I have said, it is also possible to create unit test using this GitHub Copilot. So unit test is one of the struggling part uh, because yes, we have different frameworks for creating unit tests. Even in case of .NET, we have X unit, N unit, MS test. In case of JavaScript, you will have Jest, Karma, Jasmine, Mocha, Chai. A lot of frameworks and tools available. Some of them are used for test framework. Some of them are test runners. Some of them are code coverages. So, but if you have to create unit test for your applications, you just need to ask the Copilot to create a unit test. And if you're not suggesting any framework, a unit test framework, it will automatically select an appropriate one and generate the unit test for you. But yes, maybe in your organization, you will be using a specific framework for unit testing, maybe N unit, X unit, or maybe just for JavaScript applications. You can specify that inside the prompt. Okay, create a unit test using X unit or create a unit test using N unit. Then it will start creating the unit test methods for that code. And also, yes, as I mentioned, the optimization of code, the improvements in code you can do with the help of GitHub Copilot. The last example which I have showed, I have just asked the Copilot whether this code is following the best practices for naming conventions and the exception handling. And you can see naming conventions, this uh, class is following the Pascal case and so and so, and method names are okay, parameter names are okay, and so. So conclusion is the naming convention in this controller are consistent and with the C# and ASP.NET best practices. Now, another thing which I have asked is the exception handling. So it is saying there in this update book, so it uses a try catch block to handle this concurrency exception, which is good. And the other methods like a create book, delete book, get by book. So they don't have an explicit exception handling. So according to this suggestions, you will be able to go and make these changes inside your code. So if I have to update this code, like I can select this code, I can go to this Copilot and select the edit mode. Okay, and I'm going to just ask update the code to use exception handling and model validation. Simple. So I'm just using this edit mode. So it's directly going to make the changes in this code. You can see instead of that a few lines of code, now it is updated with the new code. And you can see this is doing the model validation and also doing the exception handling. So we just need to go and accept this change or suggestions what is made. And if you want, you can also create the unit test for this methods. Okay, so you can use this generate test, or you can directly write a prompt inside your Copilot chat to generate the unit test for this. But yes, obviously, not only the code generation, because people is now not only writing the code, but they also interested to deploy the applications into the cloud environment or on-premise environments. So one of the common practice that we do is writing the Docker file and containerizing this code. Suppose if you are not familiar with the Docker or you don't know what are the best practices for writing the Docker file, no need to worry about that. You can just ask the Copilot, okay, create the Docker ignore file and a Docker file to containerize the application. And you can also select the project CS project file because it says which version is used. So based on that, it's going to create the Docker file and the Docker ignore file for you. See, it's going to create the files. Yes, multiple files are required. So it's going to create both the files for you, as you can see. Before accepting this suggestions, you can just go and verify whether it is generated properly or not, and even the Docker file. So once you feel that this is fine, you can accept those suggestions. Simple. I have created a very simple REST API application in just 30 minutes. And I have not written much code into this. I have just used the GitHub Copilot. So 80% or 90% of my application is already ready. Now I can easily create the unit test. I can optimize this code. I can generate the documentation for this project also. Suppose if you are expecting us to create a documentation at the project level, so you can do that. Create a documentation for the project uh, in a readme.md file. It should contain the project title, description, method, declarations, and HTTP endpoints, and its usage. Okay. So I want to create a README file, and then I was just trying to create a documentation in a readme.md. So you can see, because I have add the context. So here, what the context I have added is the complete code base is added as the context. And you can see it is now suggesting this. So this is what it is created. So, okay, you already have a README file. So it's going to update the existing README file, and you can see this is what modified, and keep this. So if you go and check the preview, you will be able to see this is what the project documentation, which contains the project title, description, project structure, and the uh, project setup, the methods and API endpoints, etc. So this is the complete documentation of the project. But yes, you by writing the better prompts, you can make this documentation much better. So this is a very simple demo that helps you to understand how to use the GitHub Copilot for building the application. So I have used just a .NET application, but obviously you will be able to use this with any language or framework. So that's it from my side. Now, if you have any questions from your side, I welcome. So you can either post your questions or unmute yourself and ask the questions.
Thanks, Sonu. I think I'll stop the recording. Probably that will help people to ask question. Yeah, Pradeep, please.